Look at that. We are live 30 seconds early, I think. Some sort of a record for me. The rankings are in for the lovely, wonderful subscribers at awesemo.com. Shout out to our own EMAC who had a healthy payday yesterday. Shout out to awesemo.com member Moses Guthrie who picked up a $20,000 payday. Two other people tweeted me whose names I've forgotten since I've been awake for... I don't know, some good 24 hours at this point due to my wife's birthday party last night. But overall, a successful introduction to the 2019 NBA playoffs. It was a fete to be remembered. It was a ball, if you will. It was great. There was drama, and one of my wife's friends' husbands was making out with one of my other wife's friends who's married, and then there was, cocaine in the bathroom and hookers. And with that, I'd like to say hi to our sponsors at Yahoo Fantasy. Yahoo Fantasy, the best place for the whole family to play DFS. I have some fun. Hopefully they're not watching. Another lovely 4-game slate today. I will take time later today to reach out to the main companies. I will go with an email this time to people I know who work at FanDuel and DraftKings and say, when we reach the second round, please, can we have 2-day rolling slates? As in, if you have 2 games Monday and 2 games Tuesday, every day you can run a 4-game slate that just lasts 29 hours, which they don't actually run any less slates. So they're always like, well, we want to run more slates and make more money. I'm like, I get that. It's the same number of slates. You can even run the fucking 2-gamer concurrently. But the 4-game slates are such a vastly better product. And they won't do it. But we did it for years at Fantasy Feud when I used to work there. And it was pretty popular. We, from the end of the NBA season, would have twice as many people playing in the playoffs because our format was not shit. So I will, yet again, for you and not for me, make that request, and God willing, they'll get in there, especially DK who has late swap. I can't think of a reason they wouldn't run a better product and make as much or more money, but I never fail to be surprised. So, again, someone that looks like there's a link, so I'm going to take this and do the retweeting. Paul, if I can have some retweeting music, please. All righty then. So an interesting slate compared to yesterday. Obviously, yesterday showing us that even though the DFS went pretty well according to plan, people did largely as they should. And I did a Periscope earlier today. I encourage you to take a look at with some takeaways from those 4 games, how we can react to them going in. And I'll try to do that again if I stay awake. Again, I try to be helpful, especially to the awesemo.com members, as we get into the later slates as the day goes on. But I'm very tired. So if it's anything like yesterday, where at some point in the third quarter of the 76ers and Nets game, I pass out and then am woken by my wife screaming that I'm late for something, I give you my apologies in advance if I am unavailable for further assistance as the day goes on. Let's go ahead and get into these 4 games. Our first game, kind of a stanky one. The Pacers visiting the Celtics in Boston. These teams played 4 times this year, obviously. Boston won 3 of those 4 games. The one game Indiana managed to take down was by a point or 2, I think, and a couple of the ones Boston managed to win were by significant margins. I do think this is a pretty lopsided matchup, though the injury to Marcus Smart does make it a little bit more interesting for me. It was worth an entire game for me for the Pacers. It makes some of the players more playable today, but I originally had Celtics in 5. Smart going out gussies that up to a more interesting Celtics in 6 here, but I will state at the beginning and hopefully again at the end if I'm awake enough to remember it, this is not a particularly brilliant fantasy game to target. Should you make your lineup and have no one in this contest, I wouldn't feel terrible about it. Moving past that to I think what is an equally salient point, the Masters is going on today with your 4th round only DFS, although that has started already, I presume. But MLB locks, I believe, 5 minutes after NBA locks, and there's late slates for that. And as yesterday showed with people's brilliant responses to Joel Embiid, who for a while was the highest scoring player on the slate with the best possible matchup for a center and was like 18% owned. and playing Jared Allen against him, which was dumb, who was more owned than Joel Embiid and everything. People aren't really on top of their game, and that was Saturday night, which knocks down the attendance, but I fully expect people to be equally as stupid today. So I bring this up because the most popular site for which we service would be DraftKings, and they have late swap, so not playing anyone from this game also allows you to leave your options open for weird shit happening, and most importantly for Paul George playing or not playing. So, that being said, I'm absolutely fine if you have absolutely no one in this game in your lineup. One thing, I think Terry Rozier starts today. We will have that news at some point during the show, I presume. And it's obviously, there's a chance it's I don't know, Gordo, there's a chance it's Jaylen Brown. I think Terry Rozier starts today. And for that reason, especially as the hour grows later, him at $4,100 on FanDuel, where no one is priced that well. Again, the disparity between the two sites day to day, the divergence, the bifurcation, if you will, being pretty significant. I have a lot of interest in Terry Rozier on FanDuel. He's not a dead man if he doesn't start. I expect them to condense into a pretty standard 8-man rotation for them and just expurgate in his entirety, obviously, Marcus Smart. But I think they start Irving, Tatum, Horford, Baines, Rozier, and bring Brown, Hayward, Morris off the bench. How many minutes projected for Rozier? Osama has him at 22. 22 is a good number if he doesn't start. I think that's just about right. I actually, again, due to fatigue and inebriation and perhaps general laziness, didn't actually do my minute-by-minute rotation breakdowns today. And many of them are obviously pending for the Celtics and the Thunder and a couple other things, so I didn't actually break that down. If he starts, I would put that number around 29. And I'm not simply intuiting this. It's a brand thing with maintaining rotations going back. And last year, when we had more lengthy Marcus Smart injuries, we had Terry Rozier start many of those games. Not sure exactly how many. Obviously, the staffing not quite identical there, but close enough. I think there's a reasonable chance that they go that way again. And again, specifically on FanDuel, pretty great. But even at DK, where he's a little more money than Marcus Morris or Jaylen Brown or whatever, I have a feeling the ownership, if that news breaks at 12:37, is pretty nominal, and I have some degree of interest in it. Again, remembering my original caveat that I don't really want to play anyone in this game if I don't exactly have to, but that seems notable to point out. There's not a lot of news and information pivots on short slates in the playoffs, especially at the beginning and before news breaks and stuff. So that's definitely something I'm keeping my eye on as the day goes on. Other than that, favorite player on the Celtics is, I'll give you a few guesses, you won't come up with it. I kind of like Aaron Baines. I do not hate him on FanDuel, where he is $4,800 and centers are priced like balls. And he is $4,200 on DK, where he is the same as Marcus Morris, a little less than certain to be more popular Jaylen Brown. They played the Pacers twice recently. He obviously got the start and has been getting the starts, played more than his average in minutes, including one 32-minute game, which was, I believe, his high in minutes for the year. He scored north of 30 fantasy points in both of those games. He may have had his highest 2 scoring games of the year there. I seem to recall missing one, but I think he had 2 of his highest 3 scoring games against these Pacers. Is a matchup that looks fine for him, and it just comes down to an ownership question for me. It's a 4-game slate. I'm looking for guys who are hopefully cheap, check, relatively unowned, I presume, check. I'm about to check, but I'm pretty sure I'm at a small number here. 1%. So, check. And have an upside, check. He's had an upside against them twice very recently, plus let you get some exposure to this game. And your center slot's not as covetous as they might be. As a matter of fact, it leads into one of those days where you may be playing more guards and that Skrilla in your utility spot than normal. There is no reason why you can't play $8,800 Kyrie Irving on FanDuel. Too cheap. $8,100 Kyrie Irving on DK. Someone told me recently he really turns it on in the playoffs. I like him more in the playoffs. In the playoffs over the last few years, obviously last year notwithstanding, he has played fewer minutes per game and scored fewer fantasy points per minute. I don't consider that terribly relevant. I just think this is Kyrie Irving. But it's certainly not markedly different either way. So I had not one but 2 people talking about playoff Kyrie narrative. Maybe I'm wrong and I'm missing some statistical oddity. Maybe my data sampling is wrong. That does happen to me once in a while. So if someone believes this and has any sort of factual, mathematical, evidentiary information to that end, I would encourage you to send it to me, because to my knowledge, that just isn't, that's not true. That's like, gangs of immigrants invading across the border. I don't think that's actually happening, but again, happy to see evidence of it. But that being said, it's Kyrie Irving. He's extremely good at basketball. You can easily spin a tale where Marcus Smart being out is good for his minutes. I expect it will be for his and Rozier's and Jaylen Brown's most directly. But additionally for Jason Tatum's, I do think it flows down. One of the things you're looking at with this team is you have a lot of guys who can play multiple positions. Hayward can play the 3 and the 4. Mars can play the 3 and the 4. Tatum can play the 3 and the 4. Horford plays the 4 and the 5. Brown plays the 2 and the 3. Rozier plays the 1 and the 2. So taking Marcus Smart out of there, that shit will filter around a little bit every which way you go, and I do expect him to stick with that 8-man rotation. And again, I expect him to be just fine in this series without Marcus Smart. He's also going to miss the second round, which in theory would be against the Milwaukee Bucks. That's going to be a bit more of a problem, but we will talk about that in, 12 days' time. So feel free to play Kyrie Irving. It is tough for me to get there. FanDuel is actually a little more appealing for me at 8,800 than 8,100 on DK. Damian Lillard is 8,400. Eric Bledsoe is 6,200. And Harden, Giannis, and Westbrook are all 10K, and if he plays, Paul George is 9K. It's a little less exciting to get Kyrie Irving at 8 under those aforementioned statements. I like Jason Tatum just fine on DK. 5,700 is nice. Carries the ceiling. That price is much, much cheaper. FanDuel, I would rather take the push discount of Marcus Morris or someone else. Not saying he's out of play. He most certainly is not. Al Horford, again, due to some of the other ridiculously good price tags, not someone I would want to get to. Again, if you watch the 4 times these two teams played this year, or game log, you'll come to largely the same conclusion, which is like, yeah, it's kind of hard for these dudes to get here in this environment. And I suspect, and I recall saying this recently, and it being worth quite a bit of money, I think the Celtics are going to be somewhat over-owned today. Looking right now, we have, Jaylen Brown is the 5th highest owned guy. Okay, I get the theory. Maybe he starts. He's only $4,400. We have a real paucity, a real lack of value on today's slate. 34% Jaylen Brown against the Pacers. Yeah, I'm going to want to play somebody else. Darren Collison, 32% against Boston. Neither of those guys are bad plays at their price. But that is a shit game. They are both in it. And, I'm surprised if either of them busts 40 and makes me super regret not having them, and one of them throwing up 19 doesn't seem at all impossible for me. We have Jason Tatum at 29%. That ticks me off him a little bit. Horford at 28. That ticks me off him a little bit. Kyrie at 26. So we'll get back to it, but again, and I feel like I may have said this once or 5 times already, not a game I'm super looking to get a million guys in on, and I do expect them to run a pretty even 8-man rotation for Boston. Marcus Morris is one of the few guys who is underpriced on FanDuel. $4,400 for a guy who might sneak up to 30 minutes and might sneak up to 40 fantasy points, and actually has had several successful games against the Pacers this year. I'm fine going there, and you really need some value there because they are not letting you off easy with the pricing over there. Gordon Hayward at 52 on DK, deserves a special mention at that price. But again, Terry Rozier, I feel like at the 1%, the sneaky guy. Hopefully they hold off on the ownership mentions. Yes, thank you. Very nice tweets. And if you have questions and are watching on the YouTube stream, feel free to fire them up whenever, as tweets. Probably the best way to do it. Messages, tweets, what have you. Those of you in the premium Slack, I will certainly get to, and of course give first priority as we get there. The Pacers, I think would be how I would best describe this experience. It's not been good. Again, they got together 4 times this year. Depot played the first one, had a very good game, had like a 50 burger. That's pretty strong. Since then, yeah, there wasn't a single game by anyone on this team where you were like, wow, great game out of that dude. You had 2 of the 3 remaining games where nobody exceeded 30. The other one, no one exceeded 36. Yeah, I'm just not excited about this. Marcus Smart being out opens up enough for a ceiling that I don't mind $6,400 Bojan on FanDuel, where small forward, as is usually the case, is balls. $5,600 on DK. Smart was instrumental in shutting down Bojan in their most recent tilt. And if you think this game stays competitive, sure, we'll just make up some words to help us out. If you think this game stays competitive or contemplative or competitive, which I'm guessing was the portmanteau I just made there. Hold on a second, I just want to feel myself for using portmanteau in a sentence. Okay, moving on. Someone has to score for this team. Bojan has been the guy. Sanzo Oladipo has frequently shown up and been like, yeah, I really have more of an offensive presence, more of a game in this league than I think most of us, or at least myself personally, suspected coming into this. Sabonis, not cheap enough for me to want to go there. He's supposed to be owned. I don't get it either side. I'm fine playing him. It's a 4-game slate. Anyone who you expect to see appreciable minutes is going to be in play in a tournament. So if you play Sabonis, that's fine. I'm not targeting Sabonis. I'm not really targeting Miles Turner. 6K on DK. The ability to snack up a half dozen blocks. I can certainly see going to Miles Turner, but not someone I'm targeting. First guy I would probably target would be Bojan. The price on DK for Darren Collison is too low. $4,800 is too cheap for him against whomever he should play without restrictions in this matchup. And even in a tough matchup, he can get 13 assists and bang out a 40 burger for you. No issue if you play Darren Collison. If he's going to be popular, I will look elsewhere. That tasted better when I had it the first time about 8 hours ago. If you want to play $4,800 Darren Collison, just fine. Probably get you in the 20s. Nothing wrong with that score. But different from yesterday with, say, Dinwiddie, where I think there's obvious reasons in a good matchup and ways that an upside comes out of it, and just much less excited about it. But again, that is well too cheap on DraftKings. Wesley Matthews is $3,800 on FanDuel. That makes an ideal shooting guard punt. Not a guy who finds a lot of ceiling, and again against the Celtics, even less likely. But $3,800, I'd probably rather go there than Terrence Ferguson, but it's a similar type of play in that case. Tyreek, $4,200 on FanDuel. Same general theory. $4,500 on DK. Not getting there in one lineup. Eddie, I think you're making a mistake with the Horford call. He'll go off if he's starting at power forward. Interesting. Well, let's see. You started 2 games at power forward against them very recently. Let's see how he did. I don't happen to remember. I do seem to recall Thad bodying him up pretty well. Let's see. He started 2 games of power forward against them, one on the 29th of March and once on the 5th of April, so both in the last 3 weeks. In the first game, he played 35 minutes and had 37 fantasy points. That's fine. I'm not feeling too bad about that. For $6,500 is the DK price. FanDuel at center, I'm feeling pretty bad if I throw $7,800 at 37 fantasy points, but that's pretty good. And the second game played 27 minutes and had 26 fantasy points. Okay. Now again, these are small samples. That's all of 63 minutes on the court. I don't mind Al Horford whatsoever. It's just that there are guys who are ridiculously, stupidly underpriced, and then there's Al Horford who costs what he should. And there's guys who carry around ginormous upsides, and then there's Al Horford who doesn't do that much and is playing the Pacers. So I respectfully disagree with you. I have no issue with you playing Al Horford whatsoever. We had a game recently where, in full disclosure, someone said, hey, I'm thinking of playing, and it may have been, it wasn't the Pacers game, obviously, because he wasn't that great there, but someone was like, I'm thinking about playing Tatum or Horford. I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to play either one, but I certainly don't want to play both, and Tatum and Horford had like 45 and 55. So I'm not saying that Horford, can't get there by any means, but I haven't projected well less than a lot of other guys. There's just better value, better. I would much rather play Aaron Baines for $2,300 less, who in those 2 games scored 3 less than him and 8 more than him. Again, 2 games is a pretty goddamn small sample. I have Aaron Baines projected at 24. I have Al Horford projected at 32. I like Al Horford just fine. But that would be my response to your question, but I appreciate your question and how well thought out it was. Yeah, so let's go on to other stuff while we're waiting for them to say that Terry Rozier is starting. Should be any time now. Have they said it yet? No, apparently not. Do you expect more minutes for the Pacers starters? Not demonstrably so. I think they value the key pieces of their bench there in Corey Joseph and Tyreek Evans and Domantas Sabonis as important parts of that rotation. So the minutes really aren't there to give. I mean, a couple, yes. I would say in general that their starters will see more minutes than they've been seeing. Again, it depends on a couple guys. Oh, before I was going to skip to the next game, before I forget, Thad Young is too cheap on FanDuel. He's always a better FanDuel play because he is a great steals guy. Boston, not a team that turns over the ball a lot, but, you know, whenever you have a chance of picking up 4 steals, Thad Young at FanDuel at 5,400, I think, is the current nut on Thad. That is, well, cheaper there. 35% ownership for PJ Tucker. Yeah, I like PJ Tucker a lot. I hadn't seen that, but I'm not shocked. Dude's going to play 30 minutes, and he costs 3,400. Or one half of an Al Horford, basically. All right, let's move on to the second game. In this game, it should make you very excited. Oklahoma City going into Portland. Portland favored by a few. Portland not a team that travels terribly well, so Vegas does have OKC winning this series. I have OKC winning this series in 6 games. But Portland favored at home in this game here. Blazers were trying to lose the last game. They rested everyone and were like, oh no, we're just resting guys. No. They had a chance to move up several spots and decided to sit some dudes and won anyway by mistake, and now they get Oklahoma City, who swept them this year. It is worth pointing out that, you know, they fared better against Oklahoma City than the Pacers did against Boston by any sort of net points accounting. I think those 4 games they lost by 9-9, 2 and 2 in overtime. That's right, give or take a point here or there. So it was not like these games were one-sided, and that's one of the reasons we like them a lot here. This game, I mean, in that the pace is up. It is the highest over-under of the day, and we expect people to be soon. Can you rank the 3 most expensive guys on DK? I will get there talking about Giannis, Harden, Westbrook. Although, spoiler alert, right now for me, it is Harden, Westbrook, Giannis. In the event Paul George is out, Westbrook would leapfrog Harden. Is where I have them. Not by much of a difference whatsoever. I don't have a strong take there. Like, I really like Giannis. All their DK prices are dumb. They're too cheap for guys who carry, you know, ginormoid ceiling. So it's really hard for me to not try to build around 2 of those guys. You know, I'm too cheap Damian Lillard, I'm too cheap Eric Bledsoe, and value. Just one of the reasons that other people think the same way, and you get 30-something% on PJ Tucker at $3,400. Portland has lost, I believe the count is 10 consecutive playoff games. That's not terribly good. Last year's issue with the Pelicans was well noted there, but they are getting healthier to a certain extent. Obviously, we still have no Yusuf Nurkic, if it's worth it. We have CJ McCollum back in the fold. He obviously too cheap. Still too cheap on FanDuel, 6,500. Too cheap on DK, 5,800. I still prefer Damian Lillard. He does very well against Westbrook, did so this year, had exemplary games 3 out of the 4 games, outscored McCollum all 4 games, I want to say. I have him projected for just shy of 50 fantasy points. That's well less than the leaders we were just talking about, but $8,400 on DraftKings is really, really cheap. And there is, you know, 60 whatever plus upside. He had 75 the last time they played. That game was an overtime game. I think he had 62 entering overtime, give or take a little bit, but yeah, 8,400. I will have all of that. Talking about the rest of this team, Mo Harkless again. Everyone wanting to get the underpriced guys and the studs, expected to be fairly popular, and this is a fast-paced game. He has been balls against the Thunder. I believe the last 3 times they played, his high score might have been like 15. Someone looked that one up for me. I just remember it's been terrible. I don't remember exactly the quantification of terrible, but it's been terrible. He's 4,000. Value is extra valuable today. I would still project him well higher than that. His minutes will be higher in those games he was playing like in the high teens. I have him for like 25, 26. Wasn't he hurt though? Yes, and he is better now than he has been the whole year. He's largely healthy. So like I don't have an issue with anyone playing Mo Harkless. But it's worth pointing out it is a matchup he struggled in. I'll phrase it that way. And he's going to be fairly popular, so it is previously a matchup that like Al-Farouq Aminu has been very good in. Al-Farouq Aminu costs you $700 more. If you have it, I would much rather play much lower owned Al-Farouq Aminu. Top 10 in ownership that doo-doos the bed. Sure, we'll pause and look at ownership. So right now, on DraftKings, I will refresh. We have, last updated 3 hours ago, which in fairness, nothing has changed there. Alright, last update 17 minutes ago. See, just there, I'm slagging someone, they come back. We now have McCollum over Lillard, 42-40. I'm fine with that. I really like both those guys. I would be over on Lillard and under on McCollum myself. Just because I'm ceiling hunting in this sort of environment. Not that, CJ McCollum doesn't have a very nice, 40-point ceiling here, which for $5,800 is going to feel good. I'd rather have more than 40% Lillard than more than 40% McCollum. Third, we have Jaylen Brown, 38%. Again, that will fall off precipitously when the Celtics announce that Rozier is starting. Nope, still not there. It's coming, though, I'm telling you. I'm going to have less than that. Probably regardless, even if he's starting. Just, yeah. Al Horford, 36%. Look at that. I like Al Horford. I would have less than 36%. I'm happy he's at 36% if I'm playing, because I'd have less. Number 5, James Harden, 10,100. Yeah. And particularly amusingly, his teammate, his correlation. PJ Tucker, 35%. Yeah, it's 3,400. He's going to play 30 minutes against the Jazz. I don't like it, but, of the value in the threes, like, it's kind of just him right now. Next, Eric Bledsoe, 6,200. Yeah, I'd have a lot more than that at 31%. It's kind of funny. Those top 8 guys kind of make a lineup. McCollum, Lillard, Brown, Horford, Harden, Tucker, Harkless, Bledsoe. Curious what the salaries add up. Hold on, I'm doing it in my head. 13.6, 23.7, 30.2, 34.6 plus 8.4 is 30. How did I screw that up in my head? 42. I think those guys add up to 47,800. So yeah, it's kind of a lineup there. You can get to tinker around with one guy, but let's see. Then Capella, 29. I would have less than 29. There's a ceiling there against Gobert. Did bang out, a 50 burger this year, but not a guy I'm specifically trying to target in a tough matchup. Collison, 4,800, 28. Yeah. Drummond, sure. Kyrie, 26, sure. Westbrook, 25. Yeah, so right now for the ownership, we are showing Harden, 35. Basically Westbrook, 25. Giannis, 20. Yeah, that's almost exactly how I feel about them. I mean, that's I don't feel a great edge looking at those numbers right now. Pretty excited that the Celtics haven't announced that Rozier is starting. So I'm going to get back to this because I've been wasting time quite a bit here. So, any amount of Lillard, knock yourself out. Any amount of McCollum, knock yourself out. Feel free to play any amount of Harkless. I am concerned with super popular Harkless. Would rather play Aminu if I can get the $700. And his Kanter is not out of play for me. He should have shown everyone now that he's really, really, really good offensively. And even in tough matchups, tougher than Steven Adams, who also is not playing at 100%, carries with himself a real upside. I don't really want to go anywhere else. Obviously, we are thirsting for value. But with them expected to give full minutes back to CJ McCollum, if I'm going at one guy, it's going to be Evan Turner, and I'm not going to feel great about it. But 4,100 on DK is a number where you can get there. Again, I currently have Harden, Westbrook, Giannis. In the event Paul George is out, and I'm going 60-40 that he plays, Westbrook gets on top, and I'm going to want as much of that as I can get. If Paul George plays, he's going to be one of my favorite tournament plays. He's 9,200 on DK. In those 4 games this year, he outscored Russ in 3 of them, including like a 60 burger, a 70 burger, and an 85 burger, which was his best game of the year through the overtime game. Doesn't really matter a ton for me, but 9,200 is well cheap. He's had several days off, which is why I think he plays. Obviously, the shoulder isn't great. There is some risk there, but 8% Paul George feels pretty good to me. probably too risky to run out there on FanDuel right now. Terrence Ferguson, perfectly equitable, especially FanDuel punt at 3,600. Did manage to have a ceiling game for him against Portland this year where he had 26 or something, which is kind of a cream dream there. Fine with any amount of Jeremy Grant. This is a game in which you want to take guys from top. Fine with any amount of Steven Adams, really. Matchup's really good. Afforded himself fairly well in this matchup this year, 4 times against Yusuf Nurkic. Got over 30 in 3 of them, I think, and close in the last one. So, randomly pulling out 40 against Cantor, not surprising for me. Dennis Schroeder, I think, is playable right now on FanDuel as shooting guard with the current state of knowledge. 5,400 is too cheap. He can get there even if George is in, and if George is out, Christmas morning. And, again, certainly a guy in the event Paul George sits, you're going to want to look at pivoting into. Otherwise, let's move on to game number 3. Detroit going into Milwaukee, where they should be whooped on. This sucks all around. Their best player against Milwaukee this year by far was Blake Griffin. What 2 players you started your lineup with on DK besides Bledsoe or Lillard? But I was going to say Bledsoe and Lillard. 1 tournament lineup. Aaron Baines, James Harden, I guess, right now. The first 4 guys into a lineup. Now you have 2 other people ask the same question, then you got a whole lineup. Is Blake playing? I don't know. It sucks. I'm guessing he plays. I have no knowledge that you don't. He did not play in the last game. The game before that, he did not play in the last game against the Knicks, which was a super important game, but it was the Knicks, and they correctly prognosticated he would not be necessary. He played in the game before that, played 18 minutes, and looked terrible. He is between 50 and 80% today, probably. I imagine he goes. I don't think he's playable. There's just too much at risk. The matchup is fine for him. He was the best Piston against them pretty significantly this year, but my guess is he plays and just makes Drummond and, Reggie Worth and bleh. Pistons. Reggie Jackson on FanDuel I like at $5,100. There's enough of a ceiling there. He's $5,100. Feel free to get yourself some of that. It's even sort of a value played over 1,600 over the floor. He's in play on DK. You want Blake out. But if Blake is out, he's one of the guys you can certainly roll in there. Obviously, if Blake is out, Drummond and Reggie Jackson are the 2 guys you are immediately most excited about. Then Wayne Ellington, and then everyone else is in sort of a shitty tier. It's not a great matchup for any of these guys. Drummond was not terribly good against the Bucks this year. Brolo actually did a fairly good job. Any chance you can explain why you're on Aaron Baines? I expect him to start playing the high 20s in minutes. I think the absence of Marcus Smart trickles even a couple minutes down his way, hypothetically. I like Bledsoe more than Kyrie to answer that question. It's been a really good matchup for him in the past. He's $4,200 on DK, where all the value is either shit or popular or both. So this is value I think is not shit, not popular, and could very reasonably get there. So I'm not doing cartwheels over Baines. Maybe only plays 24 minutes and gets 17 fantasy points. That result wouldn't shock me whatsoever. But yeah, I'm trying to move away from chalk. Move away from guys who I just don't think are that good in their necessary spots. And Baines has excelled here twice in the last few weeks. Again, and if I'm going back to games in December and January, it doesn't really matter a whole fuck ton for me. But both those games were pretty recent, and that just shows me that it's at least possible. Like, he had, I think, 32 and 34 fantasy points in those 2 games. So it's possible he gets 32 or 34 fantasy points for me at $4,200 and 2% owned tonight. Look at him. Like, that is enough of a thing for me there, and the situations tonight aren't really that disparate to those. Gobert outplays Capella. It's not a great matchup for either of them, just looking at their results in the past. And again, that is not a thrilling fantasy game, and I guess we'll just sort of segue into that now. I got to talk about the Bucks for a second. But so if Blake is out, I like Drummond a lot on DraftKings. If Blake is in, I'm pretty unexcited about it, and frankly, the whole goddamn team in it. And I do think he is probably in. If he's out, I like Drummond. I like Reggie just fine on FanDuel regardless. I like him on DK if Blake is out. Wayne Ellington comes into play if Blake is out for me. But again, I don't feel any need to do any great flips to get these guys in. Ish would be next for me, then Luke Kennard if we're still going down that rabbit hole. For the Bucks, Bledsoe is perfectly reasonably priced at 76. It's a good matchup for Eric Bledsoe. I have my notes here, but I don't have any quantified data. I just have me writing that it's a good matchup and a couple plus marks. But I suspect he was good in this match. I can think of 3 of the games offhand. I rewatched almost all the playoff relevant games over the last 4 days. He looked really good. I have him projected for nearly 40 fantasy points here. 6,200 on DK is just way the hell too cheap. And his ownership isn't as egregious as some of these other guys. I like Eric Bledsoe a lot. I like Giannis a ton. FanDuel is very much playable, small forward of position. You know, he's you can argue him versus the other guys because of the value differential at the position. Him getting 65 at small forward may be better than Westbrook getting 72 at point guard, and so on. But any amount of Giannis, either side, no problem whatsoever. I've already spoke about his rankings. I slightly prefer playing Steven Adams as my center compared to Miles Turner, compared to Brook Lopez, but not a big differential between those 3 guys. Good matchup for Bolo, can get away from Drummond, can pop himself off some significant number of 3-pointers. I would rather have Blake in if I'm playing him. Thon McCurr being out there, they get to change up the defense a little. Ends up being net worse for Brook Lopez if you're thinking about going there. I have no interest in Nikola Mirotic. I'm shocked if he sees more than 20 minutes today. They're just going to round him back into form. Sterling Brown, not so much on DK. Don't mind if you go there on FanDuel at $4,300. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the last game. The Jazz and the Rockets have been really, really good. Now, I'm a bigger fan and believe that the Rockets' performance and ranking and ratings are more accurate. The Jazz have had an incredibly easy schedule over the last couple months. I mean, like, historically easy. The extent to which their schedule was backloaded easy and front-loaded hard is ridiculous. If you get bored sometime, just go look at the order of the games the Jazz played, and literally of their... I'm pulling this number out of my ass. 40 most difficult games, 31 of them came in their first 40 games. So, I mean, they really ran into a buzzsaw earlier in the year. So, but looking at any statistical metric of NBA teams over the last couple months, Jazz look really, really good. And that's not entirely fraudulent. But over any similar time, you have them top 5 in the NBA in offense, top 5 in defense. You have the Rockets top 5 in offense, top 5 in defense. These are teams that are really firing. Collison, Rozier, or Bogdan. Again, Bogdan's costing you 5,600. Collison and Rozier costing you 48 and 49. I'm most inclined to play Rozier. Any love for Sterling Brown on DK? I don't think he's unplayable at $4,300. I'd have to look at some other options. Yeah, I have some love for him. He's certainly not out of play as, again, a guy we expect to see minutes on a short slate. There's still no Celtics news. I'm excited about this. Get ready to fire up your Terry Rozier. I'm so going to be wrong because I've built this up so much, but so going to be wrong. So anyhow, after my little preamble, they're basically all hands on deck for the Jazz. I think Kyle Korver is still questionable, but Neto and Rubio are probable, and everyone should be back and good to go there. Gobert at $7,700 on DK is just, again, way too cheap. The upside is a little limited compared to all the other way too cheaps. Got to pick 3: Westbrook, Harden, Lillard, and Bledsoe. I would leave Westbrook out at the minute and not feel good about it whatsoever. But again, it's DK we're talking about, so I'm presuming George is in with that statement. Ricky Rubio, really tough matchup. I'm not getting there in one lineup. I do think the minutes could even still be a little bit limited. Yeah, I'm not getting to Ricky Rubio until many lineups in. 150 lineups, I'd have 3. Donovan Mitchell, I'd have closer to 10. He's just a guy who carries a big upside. His man's to get there. Again, these Rockets eliminated the Jazz in 5 games last postseason, I think. They split the 4 games they played this year. The Jazz won the first 2. The Rockets won the second 2 as they've started to round into form a little bit. Derek Favors on DK, 5,400. That's also too cheap. But again, by the scale of how much things are too cheap on DK, it's really not that much too cheap. Joe Ingles, 6,300. Not a lot of interest. 71 on FanDuel. Not a lot of interest there either. Gobert 10K on FanDuel. I'd be working kind of hard. The guy I probably have most interest in if I'm playing on FanDuel and looking for a Jazz guy to run back with my James Harden would probably be Jay Crowder. I don't mind the matchup for him. 4,600 sticky position. So, what would JC do? I think I could run some Jay Crowder out there. Looking over at the Rockets themselves, again, tale of two sites a lot here. Everybody priced much, much better on DK. Specifically, Chris Paul is $1,500 less. James Harden is $2,200 less. Eric Gordon's only $400 less. PJ Tucker is $900 less to go to $3,400. And Clint Capella is $2,300 less. So all of these things are very safe. Per game this series, you are going to have an average of somewhere around 58 for James Harden, somewhere around 37 to 40 for Chris Paul and Clint Capella. Both Chris Paul and Clint Capella have 50-plus upside. They've both dropped 50-plus in a game against the Jazz full strength this year. Harden had a 70-plus with Paul there and an 88 with Paul out. But, again, that's not something we're necessarily looking at here today. If you're not playing Harden, I'm a moderate fan of playing Chris Paul or Clint Capella at their prices. Hold on now, as I'm going to yell at my family to quiet Bobon. Bobby is upstairs making quite a bit of noise. So here we go. Someone stifle Bobon. And this is one way that I teach my daughter fun words like stifle. Speaking of stifle, I wonder if that was subconscious talking about the Jazz and the Stifle Tower and Rudy Gobert. Amusing how the brain works. I think that's a good description. FanDuel, obviously you can still James Harden. 8,400 for Chris Paul. Very playable. Again, can drop 50, and if you have Chris Paul at 4% owned and he puts out 50 against the Jazz, you're going to be in very good shape. But like him more on DK, where the price is much more appealing. Clint Capella, same deal. Not going to find his way into one lineup very frequently, but especially if I don't have James Harden, those guys are perfectly strong tournament plays. PJ Tucker, playable on FanDuel at 4,300, where you can throw it away. Very playable on DK. I believe he is a BB ranked, which is the highest I think I've ever had PJ Tucker ranked on DraftKings for me at 3,400. He's the best value play out there now. It sucks, but they're going to want him. He's brilliant. I think he should be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I'm a massive, massive PJ Tucker mark. The Pacers will start. God, the tension is delicious. I hope it lasts. The Pacers will start who we thought they would start. No news there. Michael Carter-Williams is in. That's useful information. You're finding yourself with 3 Celtics on FanDuel only because of the pricing. You don't feel good about it. Amusingly enough, and again, I'm not putting any money behind it, but I have those exact same 3 Celtics person who just tweeted me in the FanDuel hypothetical I built. So, yeah, don't feel too bad. I don't want to be playing 3 Celtics, but the fact that I'm throwing one of them away makes me feel like, oh, okay, that kind of works. Thoughts on Crowder? Chowder? I like white more than red. Crowder, I really like him on FanDuel. DK, he's perfectly fine to play. Still at that price. It's a strong matchup for him. It's a bit more of a Crowder matchup than a Favors matchup. I'm fine with it. No ringing endorsement, but no full up avoid. Alright, let's get into questions. If I missed anything, I feel like I did a good job. I feel like we covered everything. If making a single entry, what would be top 3 non-stud you would suggest DK? Definitely say Eric Bledsoe, who I think we can safely say isn't a stud by the traditional knowledge. I like playing Aaron Baines, and boy, he's going to do bad now. He's going to be today's Spencer Dinwiddie. He was fine by yesterday's standards, but the guy who gets 1,000 mentions. And I don't know. After that, I'm trying to think of someone who at their prices I really think is well positioned against the ownership. I'm amazed we don't have a Celtics lineup yet. I am thrilled by this. Seriously. They're going to start Terry Rozier, or at least I'm certainly putting my eggs in that basket. And he's going to be like 11% owned, and it's going to be sexy. Alright, so let's look at some questions. Going backwards in time. If you're making one lineup, would you rather have Collison or Rozier on DK? I would play Rozier in a lineup. It is much riskier right now, but I would play Rozier right now. Still playing Thad Young on FanDuel, 45% owned. I'm fine playing him. Let me refresh my memory as far as power forward on FanDuel goes. It depends just how much of an abortion it is. I mean, power forwards on FanDuel is really goddamn skin. By the way, shout out for Zach Collins. There will be a game in these playoffs where Enes Kanter gets played off the floor, and it could be today. So, talking about if you want to get away from super chalky PJ Tucker at $3,400, Zach Collins will be in the rotation, has an upside, and there are going to be games where either due to foul trouble or due to the fact that he's a dreadful defender, Enes Kanter gets played off the court, and you can get 26 minutes of Zach Collins. Can't strongly endorse it because they've really been riding that Ennis all night and enjoying themselves, but some chance that happens tonight. So Zach Collins, worth a shout out there in this conversation that we're having. Yeah, so power forward, like guys who I really like at their price. Blake, no. Favors at his price on FanDuel? God, no. Sabonis at his price on FanDuel? No. Tatum at his price? That's the first guy who at least, like, I don't hate it against the Pacers. Jeremy Grant at 5,600, I legitimately like. So that's one guy I like. Aminu 55, Thad. Marcus Morris. So, you know, there's really three power forwards I kind of like at their price. Minutes projection for Rozier if he starts, I'm going to stick with 29. You may have missed it, but would you be over under 28% on Darren Collison? I would be under 28% on Darren Collison. I think he's a great cash play. Be one of my first guys into a cash lineup. I don't mind if you have 100% Darren Collison. It's very unlikely he's going to completely blow up the world on you and be terrible. I have him projected for, I think, 26.5 fantasy points. That doesn't feel that bad for $4,800. But he's just a popular guy with a floor. I'd be inclined to look elsewhere, but I don't have a super strong take on that. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we talked about all of that. Let me just look for this. All right. I'm loading up, I'm turning on the third monitor. Now I actually need Celtics news at some point soon. Brown starting. Big fuck. See? Just when you think you know something. Now all I do is feel really bad for someone who, like, logged off this show 3 minutes ago and is like, oh, well, bullocks. That's a shame. Would have been nice to have some edge there. I like Brown more now. It's more likely he gets 32 minutes as opposed to 28 minutes. He is going to be uber popular. I probably want to have less at this point. I have no issue if you want to play, you know, Jaylen Brown. He is exactly what you think he is. The price is very appealing. Knock yourself out. Go get yourself some. Yep. At this point, I would have him projected for probably 30 or 31 minutes and 24.5 to 25 fantasy points, I think is where it would come out as, which is fine. I've missed a lot of questions. Let me get back into some of these. DK Utility Brown Pivot. Aaron Baines, $200 less. Same team. DK GPP, CJ and Brown or Haywood and Collison. Is it okay to play CJ and Dame in the same lineup? Yes, I think it's absolutely fine to play them on DK in the same lineup. Thoughts-ish on FanDuel? I think he's a perfectly reasonable drop. Go right ahead. Are you dumb by fading Jaylen Brown on DK? If you are, then I'm dumb. I would come in under the field on Jaylen Brown. I don't think I would play zero, but Jaylen Brown is not such an incredibly gifted basketball player, and moving him into the starting lineup threatens his usage. He's now standing between, you know, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, and they're playing the Pacers, and, like, Jaylen Brown's good, but he's not, you know, guaranteed money, so no, I don't think you're dumb by not playing a ton of him. Wait, you're confused. Why would they start Rozier? They've started him next to Kyrie quite a bit in the past. When Marcus Smart was out, they did it last year, like, 15 times, I think, but got an Eric Gordon take on DraftKings? I don't want it. I can't do it. FanDuel GPP, Tyreek and Cantor, or Crowder and Turner. How does that work? Oh, Miles Turner. I was thinking Evan Turner. I'm like, how would that work? FanDuel, I would run Crowder and Turner. Blocks and stuff. Thoughts on Chris Middleton? Fine if you're not... I mean, I have him projected for well less than Bledsoe, and he's more expensive than Bledsoe on DK, so obviously I land, whatever there. I imagine we have him projected in the 10% range, which is, I'm guessing, we have him at 17%. I would come in, under that number. Thoughts on Baines on FanDuel for 4,800 on center? Yeah, center on FanDuel is not super inspiring, but at that price and ownership, I would probably rather Steven Adams by a little bit if you can get up to 65. Or Brolo at 58. If we randomly got Blake News early, you can 3,600 on McCurr at that point. But center's pretty shit on FanDuel. You have Drummond at 10.6, and I think Blake's in, and I don't like the matchup for him. Meh. Gobert is 10 grand. Capella is 9. Horford is 7.8. Cantor is 7.5. Turner at 7 I like more than all those other guys just because of blocks upside. But yeah, Adams, Turner, Lopez. But yeah, Baines, I'm okay with. I mean, obviously there is a floor and some stuff going on there. But yeah, let's some more questions by the Twitter sphere. Bro, if we're ever at a live event, beer's on me. That guy won like 20 grand yesterday, so that's nice of him to say. Is Ish Smith a thing? FanDuel GPP? Yeah, I'm okay with that. I slightly prefer Reggie if you have the 5 than Ish if you have the 4. But he's very droppable and carries an upside, so I'm fine with it. Let's see, other questions. Do you like Rozier on both sites? I think Rozier is unplayable on DraftKings now. We're close to it. I won't go with unplayable, but not starting now. I have to drop his projection back into the low 20s in minutes. There's just better guys to play. FanDuel 4,100. I'm still fine with it. You can throw it away. 600 over the floor. Go over your Jeremy Grant thoughts again if possible. He's in a game that I'm trying to focus. He's in a shitty position and power forward, especially on FanDuel. He's probably going to be the highest owned power forward on FanDuel, I would think. And I like him both sites. He's not super upside guy, though he does occasionally break it out, but he's just a cheap entry into that game. So I'd like Jeremy Grant. He'll be popular. He's not a guy I'm targeting, but he should be solid. He's going to play 38 minutes in this game. Anyone under 3K on DraftKings who is playable? Ooh. Now we're getting into excitement. I think I saw Bruce Brown broke the 3K threshold. Let's see what we've got. Now it's a party. I mean, Bruce Brown's not quite there. Shumpert's not quite there. Nope. Sorry. I wish I could say, but no. It's just not there. DK Cash, CP3 and Tucker, or CJ and J? That's a good question. I would take CJ and J, but that's very close. Any opinions on Donovan Mitchell and DK? Yeah, I think it's a fine tournament play. He carries the upside. He's done it in this matchup before, including in the postseason last year. I don't love him at 8,200. He's not going to profile better than Lillard for me, or $2,000 less for Bledsoe, or 2,400 less for McCollum, or whatever. But he's going to be low enough owned. I would expect that certainly I'd like it as play. We have him at 9%, so that feels pretty good. Favorite game to load up on? The second one, Oklahoma City and Portland. There's Houston and after that it would be the third one. It would be the Pistons and the Bucks would be the third one. But both the first and the last, the former and the latter games, have a real chance of getting foggity. Which team are you most comfortable fading if making one lineup? Pacers. Just over the Celtics. But I'm really not super concerned if I have no Pacers, no Celtics, or no Jazz. It changes a little bit site to site. But Pacers, Celtics, Jazz, Pistons. Like, if you made your entire lineup out of Bucks, Rockets, Trailblazers, and Thunder, I think you'd be just fine. Sorry, I'm scanning news. Let me try to bring things a little more, so I'm looking a little more at camera. But 5 minutes to go. Disappointed by the Rozier thing. I'm pretty sure he started a giant pile. Someone can check me. But I'm pretty sure he started a giant pile of games last year when Smart was out towards the end of the year. So February, March, I think Marcus Smart missed like a month and a half. Someone can look that up for me. Is Horford playing? Yes, I expect him to play and start at power forward. I haven't seen specifically a Celtics lineup. Let me dig to my Celtics beat reporters and make sure that's there, but I presume he will start next to Baines. Someone said something about Mirotic. I'm not going to play. Mirotic thoughts. Don't play him. There you go. Thoughts on Wesley Matthews on FanDuel? I like him on FanDuel. He's 3,800. There's a 2% chance he drops 30 for you, and you can throw him away when he's not. So I like Wesley Matthews legitimately on FanDuel. Thoughts on Sabonis? More expensive than I want him to be. Has had a couple decent games against the Celtics this year, but just there's so many underpriced guys. I'm fine with it in a tournament, but not a guy I'm specifically targeting. Here's expected lineups. I don't know what that's from, but yeah, those are the lineups I expect for the Pacers and the Celtics. If Harden leads the Rockets to a big lead, do they slow it down, or does Gordon and company continue to chuck threes? No, they hammer fist it until about 3 minutes left. Just looking for news. About 4 minutes and change to go. 4 minutes and change, everyone. Getting into your Sunday basketball and stuff. I doubt anything else will break, so if you are concurrently running baseball, I know some people are, you can probably cut bait, jump ship, bail, as the kids say, at this point. But otherwise, I will be with you right down the lock, and then we can get a look at some ownership and see 44% Jaylen Brown or whatever. I like him more on FanDuel, where he's still, droppable even if it goes badly. But yeah, and I like Jaylen Brown. All-time great mixtape, by the way. Jaylen Brown, great mixtape. Super popular Jaylen Brown against the Pacers. I'm gonna try to find a way to play something else. Call me crazy. Honestly, counting ownership, he would be like my 6th most popular Celtic on DK. I would rather play Baines. I would rather play Tatum. I would rather play Irving. I'd have to sit there for a little bit on Marcus Morris. I'd rather play Gordon Hayward, so 6th. He's fine. I just again, it's just one of those things that he's starting and people just, cream themselves. Yes, I think Aminu is a great pivot off of Brown. Let's see if we have new ownership. I'll take a look at that. I'll buy that for $1, the man says. No new ownership. But again, everyone presumed correctly, and I was wrong, that Brown would start, so there you go. Thoughts on Brook Lopez, FanDuel GPP? I like him a lot. He point per dollar profile is very similar to me to Baines, Adams, Thad Young. But I'm fine going with Brolo. One of the games against Detroit, got free for, I think he shot 7 for 12 from 3 in one of those games, and can obviously get some space. So probably 4th on my Bucks hit parade, but certainly not out of play on a 4-game slate. Scanning for the news. That is all I am doing, my friends. All I am doing. 1 minute 45 seconds until we are ready to go with today's games. Don't see any overlay. I like to do that check once in a while. Don't think anything real significant there. How many raw points do you have Lillard projected for? 48.7, I think, is what I had when I was looking at it this morning. I like him a lot. I like him a lot. So, yeah. Game time. Check your watch. It's about to go down. You meant real points? 26 point something, I think. It's a good question. Yeah, good luck to you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Again, I will be around for every late slate for which I am conscious, which may be few. There's a little overlay on the main thing on FanDuel, I think. It disappeared. Yeah, actually, the main event on FanDuel is not overlaying, but raking like 2%. So, If you have a FanDuel lineup, throw it in there a couple times at reduced rake. It's not overlaying, but it is raking like 2% right now as opposed to 15. So that's lower rake. So if you have a FanDuel lineup at the ready, I could see throwing it in there. A couple satellites overlaying as they tend to do on FanDuel. Yeah, coming up on lock. Jaylen Brown gets the start. Hot news. Yeah, I'm actually gonna. So let me see what I'm doing here. While we're waiting for ownership to become available, as we are now locked, let's go to basketballreference.com. Look at Marcus Smart game logs. This year, I think he missed 2 games exactly. The last game of the season after hurting himself in the Magic game, and 1 game previously that Kyrie was also out. I think he played 80 games, so we're not going to get a lot from this year. But if you go back and look last year to find some method to my madness, yeah, he missed 2 big swaths of games. So let's click on a game Marcus Smart was inactive. We'll click on this game versus the Pelicans. The starting 5 for the Celtics were Aaron Baines, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Marcus Morris, and Terry Rozier. But Kyrie didn't play in that game. So that doesn't count. He's starting for Kyrie there. I'm pretty sure there were games he started next to Kyrie. Not that any of this matters now. Nope, there he came off the bench with Tarzan. I may just be remembering incorrectly. Got a lot of random basketball stuff crammed up in there. He is next to Kyrie in 1 game. Most of the time he didn't, so I was wrong. Let's look at ownership. Let's see, is anything in here on FanDuel? Let's see how that thing overlaid it. God. Yeah, my pleasure. Let's, alright, so some FanDuel ownership clicking through here. Let's, where was it? 333 something or other, I think was the main. Yeah, there we go. I assume there's an entry to it somewhere. Here it is. Alright. Wesley Matthews, 14%. Marcus Morris, 34%. Thaddeus Young, 38%. None of those surprise me. Kyrie Irving, 42. That's fine. Bojan, 18. It's just fine. Jaylen Brown, 38. 38% at $4,800 on FanDuel. I don't know. Gordon Hayward, 11.5. No, in fairness, he's $6,400 goddamn dollars. That's pretty tough. Anyhow, 38% on Jaylen Brown being the big number there. I presume the center's pretty nominally owned. Alright, let's look on DK where they just make this shit easier. You have to log in. Okay. Contests. Live. What was their big contest today? Also $333,000. Coincidence? I think not. Theirs filled, by the way. How do you like that, FanDuel? Gotcha. Hoisted you right on your own petard. Let's see what the dumb ownership is on Jaylen Brown here. I think it's like 41. I think it's higher than we had projected. Let's see. Nope. 36. 35.5. So basically the same both sites. Again, I'm fairly ambivalent. That's about what it should be. Darren Collison, 25. As mentioned, I'd have less than that. Kyrie, 23. That feels pretty good. Marcus Morris, 22. That feels pretty good. Tatum, 18. That feels pretty good. Bojan, 16. Sure. Hayward, 14.5. Probably want more than that at 5,200. You know, 40% of the ownership on Jaylen Brown. Al Horford, 14. Long may he run. Miles Turner, 12.5. Aaron Baines, 9.3. There it is. I've tied myself to Aaron Baines today. It's funny, just going through the year, the guys I end up tied to. I've been tied to Gordon Hayward a few times this year, and it's worked out excellently. Yesterday was tied to Spencer Dinwiddie. Not that much fun. Thad Young, 7.3. Domantas Sabonis, 6.8. Tyreek, 3. Terry Rozier, 2.8. Wes Matthews, 2.4. Kojo, 0.95. TJ Leaf. Okay, last time he was the answer. Rarely the answer. Doug McDermott, 0.2%. Never the answer. Aaron Holiday, 0.09. RJ Hunter, 0.09. Daniel Tice, 0.08. Tyler Oakland, 0.07. Alize Johnson, 0.04. Semi Ojale, really never the answer, 0.03. Bad Wanamaker, 0.03. Bob Williams, 0.02. Jonathan Gibson, 0.02. PJ Dozier, 0.02. Edmund Sumner, 0.02. Victor Oladipo, 0.01. Congratulations. You, two people, played yourself. A couple late questions, and then I will get out of your way, let you enjoy your baseball and other sports. Do you like Thon if Blake is out? Yes. At the lateness of that coming and people not switching, you'll get him at a low enough ownership and value is real poopy today. So, yeah, go ahead and get that. All right. 9% for a starting center is always good. That's a fair commentary. There are exceptions. There are some, I wouldn't have wanted 9% of Jared Allen yesterday, but that's a fair point. Anyhow, I am gone. I will be back again tomorrow for whatever it is. Hopefully we're as successful today as we were yesterday. Tweet your approbation or disapproval to me by the end of the day. Bonne chance. Good luck. Enjoy your Sunday.